Hi guys, welcome back to Into the Light, a different life story, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today is another fantastic day to do some housekeeping first. Yay! And that means I ask you to push that subscribe button down there and tell your friends about this show because we've got so many fantastic guests here on our show. Today I'm recording show 181. So there are already 180 beautiful souls that came onto my show and shared often very intimate and powerful stories that showed their change, their transformation. And it is so beautiful because these people all have learned so much and are giving it for free to you. You'd be stupid not to subscribe. Come on, go down there right now. Click. Cool. So now that is out of the way. So I have got another guest with me today, Marybeth Janke. And I was thinking, how do I introduce her? Because she is such a powerhouse of a woman. She is a trailblazer, both in her own life as well as actually for women out there. And she has gone where few women have gone before. And I'm not talking moon, okay? I'm talking actually Secret Service here. And yes, that Secret Service in the United States. But I was half joking with her because I was far more interested in the story of her growth rather than the obvious. Oh well, did you shoot a few people or kind of a thing? I don't know what you would go down that route for. No. So one way or the other, this is going to be an exciting interview. So Marybeth Janke, welcome to my show.
Hey, Stefan, thank you so much for having me. We've already had a great conversation even before we started recording, so thank you.
And it's beautiful to have you on the show because it is reading your book, The Protector, was quite an eye-opener for me. And there are some books which are purely written more or less for entertainment. And you know exactly, like many special forces memoirs, so to speak, you know exactly that they have been word for word approved by the UK military or by etc. So it's more or less a prospectus, an advertisement for the special forces. And you think, right, okay, come on. So your book was not like that because when you wrote this book, you already in a very different phase of your life when you moved on from the Secret Service. So therefore, there was quite a bit more balance in your book. So I'm already making advertisement for The Protector.
Awesome.
Well, exactly. It's a fantastic book, guys. Read it because it shows you the path of a young woman maturing and not letting any hurdles get in her way. And I think maybe we should start with that. Tell us, you as a younger girl, you as a teenager, how was your life as a teenager? Did you think, I will go into the Secret Service? Sure, Mum, that's what I do.
Right. So first of all, I'm from a suburb of Chicago, and I am one of 7 children. And I say all that more the one of 7 children because I believe birth order really plays a role of what I did as a career and who I've become as a person. And we have a brother, he was first, and then 6 girls. And the first 5 of us are literally 1 year apart. So when I was a first year in high school, I had a sister in the 2nd year and the 3rd year and the 4th year. So 4 girls getting ready for high school was a little crazy. And every time I walked into a classroom from the very first was always, my maiden name is Wilkas. And so they'd say, oh, another Wilkas, are you as smart as your siblings? And I'd be like, no, but I'm cuter, or no, but I'm funnier, or no, but something that I thought was really clever. And as right before that, it was my junior year of high school. That's right. When I decided what I wanted to do with my life, I took what's called an elective. It was not a normal class. It was called criminal law. And one day the teacher was talking about the difference between a federal law enforcement officer, a local police officer, a state cop, all these different levels of law enforcement. And I was like, oh my God, I know what I'm going to do with my life. And I went home and told my parents I was going to be an FBI agent. And my dad said, oh, that's interesting because a man named Marlon Johnson works in my office as another executive vice president, but he's in operations. So why don't you come meet him? So it turned out that this became a tradition when I was in high school that I would go downtown to have lunch with my father. But prior to having lunch with my father, I would meet up with Marlon Johnson, who used to run the Chicago field office of the FBI. And we would chat. And any questions I had, he answered for me. And if he couldn't, he'd press the speakerphone. He'd call the Chicago field office of the FBI. And he'd say, I have this young lady here with me, and she has some questions. She's going to be an agent. She's going to be amazing. She has a question that I can't answer. Can you answer it for her? So it became like way more real for me and like doable, just knowing that this, just seems so human. And so I studied criminal justice in college at a university called Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And just knowing that that's what I wanted to do. But everybody that does what I did does not necessarily study criminal justice. You don't have to. But that's what interested me. And I loved having the education in that. So that's kind of my road educationally. And when I graduated college, I went to live in Spain for another few years. What happened was I had done a program my junior year for a semester in Seville, Spain. And I thought it was so amazing. But I also realized that, boy, just as you start to get good at language, you realize how much you don't know. And so I said to my parents, after I graduated, I said, okay, I'll get a job, but first I'm going to go spend a few more months in Spain because I want to be more bilingual. Well, a few more months ended up being 3 years. And, and so I spent every single penny on travel. And then when I came back to the United States, that's when I put in my applications to the United States Secret Service and the DEA. And then I took a job.
But I'll stop you there because there's already a key ingredient in your spreading of wings. Suddenly you were no longer the sister of or the daughter of. Suddenly you were alone living in a different country, which is a huge step. I mean, that is, talk about growth, talk about jumping into the deep end. And
it was amazing.
How beautiful is that? That for sure gave you the self-confidence because, after a few months, you either run home because you're so frustrated or homesick, etc., or you actually have toughened the hardest bit out. And now you start to find yourself. So there you were doing all those beautiful things that you do in Spain. And that would have been the 80s thereabouts.
87 when I graduated college. So 87 to 90.
There you go.
Yeah.
87. See, actually the summer of 87, 89, I spent in Spain as well.
Come on.
Yeah. So we had some fantastic times there. And knowing the 80s, booze was there, women were there. Women went there to meet men, and men went there to meet women. So you do things that you're doing when you're a younger person, including maybe having a joint or two.
Maybe.
Exactly. And I love it. I love it, guys.
I was.
Of course I was, because I read your book. And that is the most beautiful story there. Here's a young woman who is spreading her wings. And of course, she is driving in the 80s a joint in Spain. How much more romantic with a sunset could you get, for Christ's sake? And then, though, what strikes me so beautifully is that you were honest. So when it came to the FBI having a look at your applications, suddenly they say, thank you very much, Marybeth, but go away.
Yeah. And just to clarify for your listeners, Stefan, they would have allowed marijuana, but because the majority of pot, whatever that we were smoking in Spain, it was also known as hash.
Of course.
Chocolate. So that was the problem, is in our country, they consider that a hard drug, not like marijuana. So that's why the FBI was like, yeah, no. And I was like, but it was legal. It was legal. Why? I didn't do anything illegal, and I even tried to appeal that, as you know, in the book, and it didn't fly. And then a few years later, when I came back from living in Spain, that's when I applied to the DEA and the Secret Service, and the rest of that story.
Indeed. And luckily, they had a bit of a different take there and actually allowed you to become the woman that you were destined to be. And that is just an amazing thing. But there is this point of rejection. There's this point of a young woman who has had her mindset, who has been there with all the focus, with all the reality. You were living it in your mind already. You were already an FBI agent. And that was at early 20s now, when they said, by the way, no. How did that feel? And how did you deal with those feelings?
Yeah. When I learned about the FBI, I was living in Spain still, because I filled out an application when I was living in Spain, but home visiting my parents. And I was actually applying earlier than is allowed because the FBI requires that you have at least 3 years out of undergraduate college. And so I was trying to get in through the language program, and I had passed all the language tests. And when my dad called me, I was crushed. I was like, okay, Dad, like, I know what was there to say? And I was just like, I'm sure, as is typical for me, I probably went for a really long run. That was like my way to process anything and just get, if I was pissed off, if I was anything, it just really helped me process. And Seville's such a beautiful place that, when you have that and you have something crappy happen like that, I was like, well, I'm living in Spain. We'll see what happens when I move back to the United States, which I did a couple of years later. And I applied, to 2 different agencies. And, I did get accepted. Well, I'm sure I would have got accepted to the DEA as well, because they were pretty much neck and neck with how they were going in the process. But I went with whoever called me first, which was the Secret Service.
And that shows already your determination and let's rephrase that. I'm really, really pleased for your addiction to running. Because this is, had you been more into tapas and red wine, then this could have led actually to a very different kind of thing. But here you had actually from the word go a very healthy coping mechanism, and you took action. You took action to counterbalance the negative emotions. And that is so beautiful. That's something that many of us addicts or many of us people who have gone through depression only learn afterwards. That the work-life balance is so important. It's the crucial thing to have this balance. And most of us have no idea. We couldn't even write the word balance if our life depended on it. Certainly not live it. And there you are. So you already had that in your favor, but you also had this moral power there. And that was the other thing that struck me reading your book, because at some stage people were sort of saying, okay, hang on, no, there might be other ways how we get around it and how we can deal with things. But let's come to that a bit later, because that actually came later in your story. Might as well fall into the chronological kind of sequence there. You then came back to the United States and started in serious earning a little bit of money, and then suddenly the call came, and you thought, oh God.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but that was interesting too, Stefan, because when I applied, they said, listen, you've lived overseas, I had that whole long list of places I had traveled. So you need to expect to wait about 2 years to be hired, because this is going to take us a while. And on one trip, so I was working for an organization called the Center for Democracy in Washington, D.C. And I was working in Latin America and Central America doing election observations. And I became a Central Latin American expert because I was bilingual in Spanish. And as I was coming back from El Salvador through Miami, I was spending the weekend there. I called, this was pre-cell phone. So I called the desk of my office and I said, hey, any messages? And she's like, yeah, agent so-and-so called you from the Secret Service. And I was like, I wonder what they need now, because there's so much paperwork, so many hoops to jump through. And I remember he picks up the phone as if he knew it was me. And he's like, "Hi, Marybeth." And I was like, "Hi." And he goes, and he starts laughing and he goes, "This is Agent whoever. And I'm calling to offer you a job as a special agent with the Secret Service." And I literally almost fell off my bed because it was only about 8.5, 9 months into the process. So that was like the last call I expected. I was still like thinking, I love my job. I'll be doing this for at least 2 years while they get me through the hoops. And we negotiated a start date and I was freaking out. I was like, I celebrated in Miami that night for sure.
Oh, how beautiful is that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was, and I got to tell you, no one's ever said this to me, but I can only imagine that there were two very key reasons that they zipped my application through. One is I'm a female. They hire us, but they can't keep us because we leave to get married. We leave to have babies. We leave to get something more stable. Yeah. Two, I was bilingual and they need bilingual agents in the Secret Service. So I think those were two reasons they really zipped me through.
That stunned me, actually, that aspect that a different language ability was suddenly putting you so much ahead of the pack that is behind you.
Yes.
And I thought, for crying out loud, the United States is changing in its makeup. I mean, are there any more pure whites actually really in America? Right. It's all the melting pot that is there, and it's beautiful. So actually, if you think about it, there should be no racism whatsoever because everyone is mingling.
Well, everybody's mingling. Yes,
exactly. Yeah. So that's the frustrating thing for me to see in daily politics in the United States. But at the same token, to realize how white really the Secret Service was at that time. Mm-hmm. Not sure if it is still the case today, and that probably extrapolates to other agencies. That there was this probably predominance of probably whites. I call it whites because obviously if you came from another country, you would be bilingual, which probably means that also your skin color and tone might be a bit different. So has that changed?
Yes. I would say that in federal law enforcement, like I think there's a lot more color in local law enforcement, say like at the city level.
Yeah.
Federal, yes. Again, it's still very hard to keep us. It was about 9% women when I was in. So at the time, there were 2,000 agents, 180 women. Now, I believe there's 3,200 agents, and there's somewhere around 13% female. Right. I think because in my era, we were still shifting to women really digging into career and motherhood. You know, we were advanced, but we weren't quite as advanced as this generation now, as being able to say, no, we'll figure it out, but I'm going to have a career and I'm going to stay longer. And there have been many more women that have gotten to higher levels because they've stayed longer. There was even a female that was head of the Secret Service, but not for long because during her time, there was a huge scandal and it just wasn't handled so great. But it's all to say that somebody was in there long enough to become director.
Becoming a Secret Service agent sounds glamorous and sounds, ooh, there she goes. Yeah. And she's going along with little martinis, shaken, not stirred. Yeah. Yeah. I think the reality of being a Secret Service agent is actually not really so glamorous, is it?
It's not. I mean, there are parts of it that certainly are. To this day, I got to tell you, Stefan, like to this day, if someone learns that I've been a Secret Service agent, I get mixed, I didn't even know there were women, or what? Like, how did you do that? But back then, and I always encourage people, they're like, well, if it's that boring, like, why are you telling me to become a Secret Service agent? I said, you have to live your own path. And there's lots of different agencies. And so for me, I remember, and I think I wrote about it in my book, is this one day that I was guarding the elevator in the basement of a hotel, and I was under George Bush Sr. This was 1992. And I was so bored. I was just like, like tapping my feet, kind of like little pacing, but not too much, because you have a post and you have, you got to have your view of everything around you, everything coming, going, coming, going, coming, going. Next thing I know, the elevator bings, the doors open, and out walks the advance agent, George Bush, all of his agent and his entourage. And I was like, in my head, I acted like no big deal. And I saw some agent look over his shoulder and kind of wink at me. They didn't tell me, because they didn't have to. The agents that are right around the president, which is called PPD, Presidential Protection Detail, they have their own radio channel that they're talking on. They aren't on the same one as our middle ring of security. So when they came out, it was like, what a reminder that was of, when you think a job is boring and unimportant, you never know what could happen. And I just remember thinking, holy shit, like what I did today mattered, and then you just realize that, the moral of the job is the bad guy only has to be on once, whereas we have to be on all the time.
I'm an anesthetist. My job is described as hours of boredom, moments of terror. And that is, I think we both have lived this life for a long time. And it is quite a unique thing, because it's like flying an airplane, the taking off, exciting. You're on 8 hours cruising altitude, and then the landing again is a bit exciting, but most of the time everything is routine. But you can't just go to sleep. You can't just lie in a corner, wake me up if something happens, kind of thing. Right. But you actually have to be alert. How did you do that? I've got my tricks, but I want to learn from the master, because if you're standing there 8 hours, and how did it work with toilet breaks, for example?
Yeah, so they do rotate us. Like, for example, different places I can remember serving posts, they, the supervisor for the shift would come over and say, hey, Wilkas, you need a push. That means, do you need a break? Do you need, we would be pushed every hour or two anyway, meaning you go from like post to post to post. But did you need a break? Do you need to go to the bathroom? You need something to drink? Okay, stand down for 30 minutes, go to the break room, go get something to eat, drink, sit down for a little bit, go to the bathroom. Nice. So they're smart that way. The government is not always the best with their resources and how they allocate them. And in that way, they know that it's kind of like, these the dogs that are sniffing for bombs, they're only worth a crap for X number of hours. You can't work those dogs and then expect them to be, without giving on doing what they're doing without giving them a break. So that's sort of, I never remember thinking, dear God, why isn't somebody pushing me? I need a break. I remember it being fair.
How beautiful is that? And
it's excellent.
Guys out there, if you're listening to that, when was the last time that happened in your job? When was the last time that you asked yourself, hey, it's an hour and a half now, am I still as productive? Probably not. Could you do with a stretch, with a 5 minutes toilet break, in which you just break up the monotony or whatever you have been doing and get back to it? Is that not something that maybe we all could actually?
That's true.
And I do the same thing, and it feels weird in my job. So I work with anesthetic technicians, so we are sort of a partners in crime. And I know exactly around about 10, I make a point of actually having a little break, going to the toilet if I need to or not need to. So they watch over my patient during that time. But I have that little break. I have that little break at lunchtime, a little break at 2, etc. And I try to maintain my vigilance by doing exactly that. Again, we're talking balance. We're talking about you getting your shit together by actually knowing what is happening inside of you. There's no way that you can be switched on all the time, there and then, 24 hours. That's murder. You can't do that. Yet we don't accept it in our own lives. That's where we think we are supermen and superwomen and just try and work. And then we're getting annoyed with ourselves that our to-do list of about 300 things that you wanted to get done that day, if you only ticked off 20, you're a bloody failure. So maybe we need to work on that a little bit.
Yes. How hard we are on ourselves. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. Was there actually much psychology training at that time in the Secret Service?
Not the way they called it. I'm sure it was woven in through things like defensive tactics and the driving, the mentality behind why are we doing these things? Why is learning motorcade operations so important? Well, because you're the most vulnerable when you're in a vehicle, particularly what they call a choke point, right? So it's becoming more vigilant. You're vigilant anyway, but then you realize, say, that's why if you've ever experienced being stopped in traffic and for hours because a president or a prime minister or any type of number one or two, they block traffic for hours sometimes so that they can move through a city without ever stopping, because we always say in speed, there's safety. So, the psychology comes in and understanding why we're doing what we're doing and not just taking that for granted. Like, oh, they told me I need to learn this, so I will learn this. I'm a robot. So they were good about explaining the whys and the purpose so that we just weren't doing mindless activities and spending hour after hour after hour training. So I always appreciated that, particularly the defensive tactics when we were learning how to use a baton, when we were doing hand to hand, when we were, getting bounced around on the mats. You kind of got to understand, and then you have 2 and 3 and 4 people coming at you because you just never know when you might encounter that in real life. So make the mistakes here so that you don't make them out there.
Perfect. And that's absolutely, that's how I train juniors in my profession. Either might it be younger nurses or it might be younger anesthetists, that we actually create scenarios and courses where they go through things, and I want them to make mistakes. I don't want to have a stellar performance, because sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And again, that is so important. Make mistakes. So true,
Stefan.
And learn from them. And it's those mistakes that will never leave you, these little mental scars where you think, oh shit, how could I do that? But you did it in a safe environment. And that is the important bit. You can now go out there and think, okay, this is a similar situation. No, this time I will not react like that to the environment or whatever is coming.
Indeed.
So let me come back to it out of interest. It is one thing for me to look after an anesthetic, because in between, after a patient whilst they are asleep, because even if it is a 6-hour anesthetic, I can joke with my technician. I can I don't know, we are talking, we're doing all kinds of things. You can't do that when you're standing there. So how do you distract yourself in such a way that your vigilance still stays, but your mind doesn't go insane? How do you do that?
Well, I can only speak for me. I can't speak for everybody else. But first of all, back then I was a huge runner. And if I didn't get my run in pretty much, 5 days a week ish, maybe more, or at least hit the gym. I was hitting the gym probably 7 days a week. But, that kept me really focused. It processed so much for me. Like if you give me my coffee and you give me my workout on any given day, including today at age 56, I will work till whatever time you want me to. But I need those 2 things. Otherwise, I'm going to become really grumpy.
Amen. to whoever tribe thought that it's a good idea to throw a few weird-looking beans into the fire and then grind it down, you are my heroes.
Amen. Oh, seriously. I mean, there's nothing better. And if I was ever told that I couldn't drink coffee anymore, I'd be like, yeah, no, I don't care. I'm going to be like, yeah.
Oh, dear. Okay, no, that's I mean, amazing. You lived a life full of boredom, but also full of excitement, because obviously you constantly are changing your roles, because you're not only allocated to one person always, as you said, you're shifted around. So there's a constant actually change in the environment, change in duties, change in the external factors that are coming in there.
Sure. And that also helped me with, like, let's say I was on a new post. So for the next hour, I would play these games called what if games. What if somebody comes around the corner? What if it's two guys with two weapons? What I would do and I still do the what if game. I am always, especially when I'm in an elevator, I always go to the back corner and I'm like, well, what if that guy pulls a gun? What if he pulls a knife? What if he tries to punch me? What if he tries to, I am still playing the what if game at this many years later.
Was there ever a time in your life when you perceived your own life in peril, in absolute mortal danger, when you were in your younger years prior to the Secret Service?
Oh, not that I'm remembering. I mean, I think I thought I was invincible. So for me to have really thought I was in danger, I still kind of think I'm invincible.
I love it. I love it. Ovaries the size of Chicago. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, not that I'm remembering, but it's not to say like I had no major car accidents when I was younger. Those happened later. But definitely in some of my missions post Secret Service.
Oh, no doubt about that. No, I was thinking, with hindsight, I'm very good in trauma management or in emergency management. And that's what I've been teaching on courses. And it really, only about 2 years ago, I realized that I had quite a decent dose of PTSD from an assault that I had when I was 13, 14. So I hadn't even healed up proper when I was starting to train martial arts with the police sports club in my hometown. And from then on, I went through quite a dark period with martial arts. And then girls came along 4 years later. I was at university and I realized that the gang leader who had sworn to kill me, he will never find me. So, I could relax a little bit.
Wow.
But my PTSD never left me. And I actually didn't know that I had it. So here I was, hypervigilant, constantly looking around me, constantly being there, which is great as a doctor. Right? You pick things up. You don't get caught out. Great. It's not so great as a man because 4 o'clock in the morning, ping, you're wide awake and remember everything that you did wrong over the last 30 years. That's great.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Yeah, well, exactly. So the PTSD was my friend and quite a big foe until I actually realized what was going on. It was not long ago. So therefore, I was asking, is there a similar thing that allowed you to be more receptive to your environment because you knew that you had to be on a deep, deep, deep down level? Because otherwise there might be a risk that you actually now die, kind of a thing. So there was not a triggering event anywhere that you could at least identify.
Not really. I mean, I feel like, I as a kid, again, being part of a big family, my mom is a very stoic woman. And I was all of my siblings and I were all very athletic. And I'm sharing this because I was very much a tomboy. Always sort of challenging the guys in sports and thinking I was better than them. And so I feel like I had a lot of my mom and me in the sense of being stoic, but very high level of self-pride. Give me a challenge, bring a guy on that thinks he's better than me. I'll whip him right off the court, right? Or at least kill myself trying. So I feel like a lot of that, it developed my motto of never let him see you sweat. Yeah. I could have been scared to death of the guy that stepped across, to play me, but I was like, I'm never going to let him see that I'm nervous. And so that also plays a role in the later missions that I took on as a international protection agent, because, and I've said this to people, you guys, it doesn't mean I wasn't scared. I just did it scared.
Stop there and repeat that sentence. I did it scared. And that is such a powerful, powerful statement. Do you allow yourself a few seconds of terror to wash over you when there's suddenly something happening and you have the time? Do you allow that, or how does your body respond? It's
happening, but I'm like, oh, holy shit! You can't stop. You got to move forward. You cannot, because you don't know what might be coming at you.
Absolutely,
it might not be till later, or the the end of the day, and you sit down on your bed and you're like.
Exactly.
What happened today?
Exactly.
And again, I got to say, I processed a lot of it during my runs.
There you go.
And I'm like, would I do it differently? Would I do anything, whatever? Like, why did that happen? Or should I have done, or I really killed that. I did a great job. Like, where did I get that from? Like, how did I think so quickly on my feet? Or, I made my mistakes for sure. But thank God they weren't life threatening or life taking.
Is in my work, there is not a guy within 7 feet that suddenly pulls a blade and tries to gut me. So therefore, my immediate reactions, the fraction of a second reactions, don't often occur. It is more the sudden realization or a sudden phone call. Could you please come to the emergency department? We're really struggling here with a little newborn that has whatever. And a scenario that scares the living daylights out of me. And I would say, sure, I'm on my way. And then there would be this, oh my God. So the adrenaline is building up and there's this wave sometimes of anxiety and fear and terror just there. Oh my God, a little bit of imposter syndrome. Doesn't matter how many times you put a little tube into a newborn, it is still scares the living daylight out of you, that kind of stuff. And I made a point later on after rehab, after getting my shit sorted, to actually accept it, that it is part of me, that is my body trying to run the fight and flight. And you feel your skin going prickly because the adrenaline rushes through it. And I feel my heart racing. I feel my mouth going dry, all that kind of stuff. And I allow myself that. And I say, okay, that's how I feel. Terror. Good. Hello, Tara. Nice to meet you. Old friend of mine. Yeah, I know you well. That's right. Cool. So now fuck off. I don't need you right now. But I actually accept it as part and parcel. So these tiny mini anxiety attacks, as you might call them, I have them had them far more frequently. Nowadays I'm a bit better, but I still experience them. And these waves of anxiety that is... I
think it shows that you're human.
I agree. And that is beautiful. And that is the skill that we need to do, to teach each other that, hey, remember, you are human. So it's okay to be full of fear, to be anxious, to feel all these emotions that maybe you don't necessarily like, but they are there. And they're like a wave in the ocean. You might hate that wave, and you can shout at that wave, but the wave will still come. So like it or lump it.
It's got to come.
Well, that's right. So that is, you had the training, and to a certain degree, you were able to deal with a lot of situations because you had the training. But there were still moments down the line. Later in the book, you describe your work in South America and other parts of the world where essentially you were no longer in the midst of a huge protective, money riddled, I need 30 agents and 2 helicopters above me, and then all that. And they said, no. We would like you to go on your bike through the deepest, carry the president on your back, but make sure that he's all safe. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So
never quite that extreme, but I would have done it. Yeah.
Well, not far off when you describe some of the experience later on. There was no advanced team. There was maybe someone going there and just making it up as they go. And it is, that is the scenario that really, really scares me. It's one thing for me to go into an anesthetic case where I know this is an absolute nightmare. I'm absolutely prepared I'm loaded for bear. Every single tool in my skill set, as well as what I practically need, is there. And I've got 3 helpers around, and okay, whatever happens. That is one scenario, but it's it's all right. And suddenly the bullets start flying, which was a very real risk for you at any one moment. And when you are alone, that is the very scary thing. How did you deal with the frustration, seeing that you were more or less set up to fail, or at least that the chances were so much bigger that you were at risk compared with the job where you had more backup, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I think you know enough about me to know that I loved it. I loved tell me I can't do something. And I'm like, yeah, right. I'll show you I can. And that's why I appreciate, for your listeners, and I hope they pick up the book. I don't want to tell you what happened with the Secret Service because that would take so long, but my life post Secret Service was far more dangerous, far more interesting, far more challenging, far more pushing me to grow, because being a government worker and having all of those resources is being a Secret Service agent. It's not to say there weren't challenges, because there certainly are, and the danger's high. It's the president of the United States or the vice president of the United States or a foreign dignitary. But in the case of protecting an ambassador in Lima, Peru, with just one other person, you kind of go, really? Like, the ambassador was offered all of the bells and whistles, and he said, no, that attracts danger. I just want one vehicle, and I only want two agents. And us being two agents really meant one was doing day shift and one was doing night shift, because he was such a partier. So we would have been on 18 hours or 20 hours. So we decided to start doing night and day. And of course I had the day shift because I didn't want to be hanging out with that guy at night. He'd always say to me, because this was in South America, and my name in Spanish is Marybeth. And he's like, oh, Marybeth, every day. He'd be like, are you sure you don't want to go out with us? He was very flirtatious with me. He was always trying, like, oh, you want to come in my hotel room? Oh, come on, Marybeth, you want to go out? I was like, no, you guys go have fun. I'll see you in the morning for our walk. And Mr. Ambassador, right? You're going to get up in the morning and walk, right? I'll see you in the morning. You're going to F with me. I'm going to F with you right back, because he always blew off his exercise.
And that is, guys, for those of you geopolitically challenged, we are talking about a time when the Shining Path had the little, hobby of blowing up, people blowing up. There was a civil war more or less going on in those parts of South America.
Yeah,
and it was brutal. So for someone to say, no, forget it. I don't need all that mess. I mean, there was some sense in it, because ultimately he tried to keep a lower profile, because, it is, if a bomb goes off, it doesn't matter how many people are around you. It doesn't matter. It shreds you all.
Correct.
So there was some sense there, but it is a strange thing. But I love it. Here again, you're stepping up to the plate. You're actually saying, come on, okay, bring it on. How can I do this job with the limited resources that I've got, or with the restraints that you have got, and get the job done in the safest possible way? There is a thrill in that.
And in a country that was still is probably, but very chauvinistic. So me asking for things from certain people, they'd look at me like, what do you want? Like, who are you? And I never would say that I was protecting the ambassador. I would just say, I'm working with the ambassador, and I would be really very much appreciated if you could help me with this. I was just learning to be diplomatic, learning to be clever, learning that, and I know you've read this in the book, but on any given day, people would say to me, oh, are you the ambassador's daughter? Oh, are you the ambassador's secretary? Oh, and then the ones that had the audacity, a couple had said, oh, are you his affair? And every single time they asked me, I would say, absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. Like, especially the daughter, I'm like, oh, can't you see the resemblance? I was about, 7 inches taller than him. But for me, because I have had some women say to me, oh my gosh, weren't you offended? And I said, absolutely not. It was to my advantage. Nobody knew that I was carrying a weapon. And so if anything went to hell, that would have bought me the extra seconds to save his life and hopefully mine. So To me, all those things that people can look at negatively, for me, they're positives. Amazing. Because again, I put my ego at the door and do my job.
And what a powerful, powerful move that was, to actually don't stand on, no, I am, and show a shield or something like that. No, on the contrary, you were actually playing along. And that, I loved to hear that. You don't have to correct everyone in their opinion. Their opinion is their opinion. It's who cares, actually? And
exactly.
Oh dear, that made me often chuckle and raised you a little bit higher in my respect that you were able to jump over your own shadows so many times there. Sure. And I can imagine, especially in South America, and especially the 80s, 90s. Then this was a bit later on. This was still chauvinistic, macho, and this was at a time when maybe nowadays people say affairs. How were you not offended? Well, that was the time when Jacques Chirac and all the French president, oh, mon amour, this is my wife, this is my girlfriend, and behind there is the man I dated last night. It is just, hey, it was what it was.
It was so normal.
Exactly.
It was so normal.
But you played with, you rolled with the punches. And I think that is the other key message that one needs to learn, that life throws you all kind of challenges. And sometimes you just have to grin and assess the situation and see what is the best way either out of this situation, or how do you deal with this situation, etc. And
Correct.
Sometimes your ego is your worst enemy. Not sometimes, probably. In my case, I've got a big ego, and unfortunately, that has burned me many a times. So I have fucked up many times because I wanted to be, no, I am who I am, and it doesn't. Nowadays, I'm far more humble, and I think it gets me far further than the old hothead that I was.
Yeah, so, I get that though, but that's how you learned, right? And that's how you grew,
isn't it? Exactly right. So, at some stage, your diplomatic work changed, and you suddenly, nowadays, you're here, a very established lecturer, you're established as a psychologist, and that's beautiful. What made that change? What made you choose to put the clock down? And was it Glock? What were you shooting, actually?
I do shoot a Glock. I shot a lot of different weapons, but currently I own several. But my favorite is the Glock still, much to my husband's dismay. I have a Glock 17. He's very different mentality. I'm married to a former Navy SEAL, so he has his own opinion on weapons. And
good on you. Good on you. That's fine. There are people who either love them or hate them.
Who's going to put up with me?
Well, there's that.
Put up with me.
There is that.
I needed a very strong man.
I was about to say, actually, talk about type A personalities there. So out of interest now, who is cooking at home?
Both.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So it's
because
not
we
MREs.
eat differently.
Not MREs.
Oh, God.
What shall we open today?
Stefan, during COVID, my husband stocked up on all that stuff. And so, we have food for about 5 years. Don't kid yourself. And I think knowing him, he really wished it was going to turn into the zombie apocalypse. So,
Oh God, we are so alike. Yeah. We are so alike. You have no idea.
It's hilarious.
But maybe we shouldn't say that really on camera and on microphone. We need to talk after or another time. No, it's the same here. Yeah. We have got a lot of shiny things that cut, and we have got a lot of things that go boom.
Oh yeah.
And we've got food for Africa. So it's exactly.
So you get it.
Come on, we are living on the Pacific Rim of fire. So even if there's no zombie apocalypse, I mean, it's just, the next thing, the earth shakes and there are no more pharmacies. So it might make sense to have some painkillers at home.
Right.
So,
we're loaded
But again,
up.
This is actually something, here we are, 3 very different jobs, an elite soldier, and a woman, a trailblazer in her own life, and an anesthetist in different parts of the world. Yet we have recognized that to be prepared is such a valuable thing because it puts you in charge. You take action. Therefore, you're a bit more in control. And that is so beautiful. And
you just said it. Remember when you stopped me when I said something, you just said it right there. You took action. And if you think about what happened to a lot of people over the last year and a half is they froze.
Correct.
So that's where a lot of people suffered is, oh my God, what is this? How long is this going to last? What am I going to do? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I would say to my clients, just do something, move forward one step, do a workout with your couch and your chair and the floor and whatever. Don't say, oh, I can't work out because my gym's closed. You can do it in the tiniest of apartments with a staircase or a non-staircase. There's always something you can do. And mentally, you have to do the mental exercises and take action and move forward.
Exactly. And that is sort of the key message, isn't it? Guys, if you think out there, if you think you go to a restaurant and you want to have a lovely meal, it's not just that someone whacks some steak in or some beautiful tofu, whatever, if you're a vegetarian, and then just that and a bit of pasta and bits and rice. That's not how you make a meal. A meal is that you add a bit of sweet, salt, bitter, bit of crunchiness here. So you put basically all kind of little things into the food to make it a balance. So tom yum soup is a Southeast Asian dish, and tom yum means perfect balance. That is actually what that
I never knew that.
There you go. So the perfect balance. Now, if you accept that when you go to a restaurant, you want a perfect balance in your food and say, wow, this is good food, would it not make sense that we try to address our life in the same way, that we actually try to figure out what makes us tick? And inevitably, there are a number of things. You want the excitement, but you also need the boredom. You want the highs, but incredibly, if you only strive for the highs, you don't know that you're anymore there, but also your system is a bit like a rubber band. If you constantly stretch it up there towards the high, it doesn't work. It needs to come back down to a level where you can say, okay, this is my serenity level. Inevitably, recharge. Indeed, life will drive you down, but equally, there's a rubber band there. So whilst down there, it's not nice to be. And I've been down there quite a bit. I can testify to that. It will come back up. And I think that is sort of always the thing that we sometimes keep forgetting, that there is a balance in life, and that whatever shit you're going through right now, it will not last. Equally, if you have gone through shit in the past, well, the past does not equal the future. So these are all the kind of facts that we sometimes keep forgetting. And I think your book and your life, Marybeth, illustrates that so beautifully, because there were absolute highs there where you thought, wow, did I do that? And then there were moments where you thought, oh my God. And there are quite a few moments that you describe really beautifully in your book. And again, let's not give the whole book away, but it is actually, it is really, really nice to see that balance and how you sometimes struggled to make sense of what was happening to you. At times you struggled with suggestions from others, how to deal with a scenario. For example, should you go down the discrimination, gender discrimination thing at one stage in your life, and you said, no, that's not me, that's not what I want to do, etc. So there are many, many aspects of your book that were actually very revealing. So therefore, when I gave it a 5-star review, I meant every word of it. So
Thank you. It was a great review. Yeah.
No, it's good. Marybeth, that was such a fantastic interview. If people want to find more about you, if they want to connect with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, I have a website. It is drmarybeth.com. So Dr. Marybeth, Marybeth.com. And, you can read some of my blogs. You can learn a little bit more about my book. You can contact me. You can, it's got lots of little tabs that you can, I even have lots of photos of my potbelly pig on there that seem to be very entertaining these days on social media. Wilbur is our yeah, he's a trip. We have 2 cats as well, but everybody loves the pig. So
well, exactly. Cats are so yesterday. That is, in actual fact, pigs are so gorgeous. And with that, I don't refer to prosciutto ham and things like that. I actually mean the real life things. So that's great. Marybeth,
he's a sweetheart.
Oh, please. You are an amazing woman. And it was a true honor to talk to you today. This was
the honor was mine. Thank you.
No, it was really, really nice. So thank you so much. Because your story reflected so many facts that might be worthwhile for people to realize. And we are all struggling, and we are all trying to make sense of some not so good situations. Here you are, you have gone through many of them, you made sense, and your way worked for you. So therefore, maybe it is cool for some others who find themselves in similar situations to think, okay, how do I go about that? Clock 17 or rather something. No, I'm kidding. But that's typically not a good way out of a situation. So
no,
trust me, I'm the hothead. So no.
Yeah, no.
Anyhow, Marybeth, it was an absolute beautiful interview. Thank you so much. And you guys out there, look after yourself. Don't give up. There is hope. There is help. Honestly, don't give up, because however dark it looks at the moment, you can take steps to get yourself out of that. You will be able to tread water and things will change. I can assure you that. So therefore, look after yourself. Awesome. Indeed. Look after yourself. Bye.